Good morning. It's Monday, Power Monday, December the 8th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity prayer and the patriotic song of the day, no patriotic song of the day, will just be the Serenity prayer and the comedian of the day, Joan Rivers. We will have the Theater of Power, and it is politics, ritual, and the economy of appearance. All that and more when I get back.
Any woman in this room that's a first wife, you know what you are a fool. Look at your rings. Look, it'll be a stupid show, but look, I could go through this morning and tell you who's a first wife and who's a second wife. Because first wives marry for love. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love him. Thank you. Thank you for the crummy ring. Thank you for the cloth combs. Second bitch, what the hell is this? What is this, some kind of a joke? You give this piece of garbage to your mother, let her wear it swimming face down. That's right. Every woman in this room, I beg you, think like a second wife. Grab and take. Grab and take. Grab and take. And when you die, whatever you got out of him, you have buried on you. If the next bitch wants it, make her dig for it.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
And now, the Theater of Power, politics, rituals, and the economy of appearance. And this is chapter 4. The last time we did this book, it was the preface. And so now we're going to skip 1, 2, and 3 and go to chapter 4, spectacle as a form of power. Power today no longer hides. It no longer needs masks, because it is the mask. It no longer lurks behind curtains or backroom deals. It stands center stage, bathed in light, magnified and multiplied, projected across every glowing surface. What we once called authority is now a performance, not a secret. It is not a hidden mechanism of control. It is a public display. Power now functions as theater. The key transformation is simple but decisive. Power has stopped acting. It now pretends to act. It no longer governs. It performs the role of one who governs. Once upon a time, power meant decision, decree, and violence. It ruled through laws, armies, prisons, through the tangible force of command. It was invisible, but effective. Now, the opposite. Power has become visible, yet hollow. Its function is not to decide, but to appear as though it is deciding. Its legitimacy no longer depends on what it achieves, but on what it projects. Today's power acts primarily through imagery. Every gesture is calibrated for the lens, every decision designed for its communicative value. Action has been replaced by representation. Reality has been replaced by its depiction. What we witness is not governance, but it's simulation. A series of staged maneuvers meant for the viewer, the voter, the archive, the algorithm. Everything must appear to be under control, even when control has long since evaporated. Modern wars no longer unfold as conflicts. They unfold as content. They're not fought for victory, but for visibility. The battlefield is a set, populated by villains and heroes whose roles are as scripted as any television series. Cruelty is aesthetized. Blood is commented on. Destruction is filtered through the graphics and sound design. Tragedy is packaged for broadcast. Politics, too, has become serialized drama. Each leader is a brand character, each gesture a line from a script, each election an episode in a long-running show. The clergy, once a mediator of the sacred, now behaves like a marketing department. Icons become logos, sermons campaigns, dogma design language, faith a style. In older regimes, power sought the shadows. It was quiet, secretive, and feared. It preferred to be invisible, operating through decrees, bureaucracy, and rumor. But modern power demands light. It feeds on visibility, on constant presence. It revels in exposure. Its arrogance lies in its nakedness. Since everything is already on display, there's nothing left to uncover. You cannot expose what openly performs itself. You cannot catch it in the act, because the act is all there is. In this new order, the image has triumphed over reality. A press conference now outweighs the policy it announces. A photograph of an event is more significant than the event itself. The narrative matters more than the fact. Power no longer needs to do, it only needs to show. It exists entirely within media, and the media, in turn, is not a mirror, but a co-creator. What is not filmed does not exist. What is not framed into a coherent storyline is simply inconceivable. People are no longer convinced. They are captivated by rhythm, by soundbite, by editing. They watch power the way they watch cinema. And eventually, they cannot tell the difference. The spectacle has merged with reality so thoroughly that disbelief has become impolite. And so, with this logic, power no longer needs to be effective. It only needs to appear so. Success is measured by coverage, not consequence. Governance becomes communication. Solutions are replaced by statements. Control becomes a question of screen time. Meaning resides in recognizability. The broadcast never stops. Even silence is a form of content. The more chaos broods beneath the surface, the brighter the lights must shine above it. Power no longer governs, it broadcasts. Guy Debord called this condition the spectacle of power. I've always called it something simpler, something closer to what it feels like when you switch on the evening news. I called it the art of fooling around, because that's what it is. Not a conspiracy of elites, not a grand mechanism of deceit, but a vast, meaningless performance in which everyone plays their part knowing full well it's all make-believe. The authorities pretend to rule. The citizens pretend to obey. The politician performs leadership. The voter performs choice. The expert performs explanation. The journalist performs exposure. Everyone plays. Everyone knows. And the play goes on. It isn't a conspiracy. It's a habit. A suit that has become skin. A role that has long since replaced the person. A script written not by anyone in particular, but by everyone at once, because it's easier that way. The spectacle of power is a global theater where the spectators and the actors trade places endlessly, neither asking questions nor wanting to. I looked at it all and realized before me stood not a system, but a habit. A habit of fooling around with a straight face. Everyone involved was convinced they were doing something important, something serious, something real, but they were merely repeating gestures learned from others, terrified to stop. What has always repelled me most is how solemnly this farce takes itself. The pomp with which empty words are spoken, the reverence with which the meaningless is presented. I've seen ministers who spoke like stage actors reading someone else's lines. I've heard sermons ghost-written by advertising agencies. I've read manifestos so polished that not a trace of life remained, only the cardboard scenery of borrowed ideas. This isn't evil. It isn't tyranny. It's posturing, raised to the level of governance. At some point, I understand something simple but freeing. There's no need to participate, no need to fight, expose, or shout. It's enough to stop acting, to stop mimicking other people's tones, to stop believing in a language that conceals nothing but its own emptiness. Just step out of the circle, awkwardly, quietly, maybe even foolishly, and live without performing. Act without audience. Be silent when everyone else is shouting. Or speak, but not into the microphone. I called it fooling around because that's exactly what it is, only now in expensive suits with credentials, with airtime, with ratings. Beneath the ceremony, it's still the same. Noise for attention's sake, movement for form's sake, words detached from meaning. And the only way to respond to it is to stop joining in. Not because you're superior, but because you're exhausted. Because you want, for once, simply to live. Not to perform, not to signal, not to sculpt a persona, but to live without an audience. And in that refusal, I discovered a strange kind of freedom. Quiet, modest, but unmistakably real. For when you stop playing the fool, the performance itself begins to unravel. Perhaps this is the hidden core, the internal spectacle, our deep half-conscious awareness of mortality. We know, though we rarely admit it, that we are all temporary, fragile, ridiculously brief, too perishable to believe in any permanent order. We're told to reform society, to build, to arrange, to secure, but somewhere inside a voice whispers, why? For what? For whom? When everything slips away. Maybe that's where the performance begins, not in greed or malice, but in a quiet existential fear, a dim recognition that life has no stable foundation, that every order is a truce among the tired, that every system is provisional, designed to crumble, so we act. We play our parts because it's easier than confronting the void. It's easier to perform meaning than to face its absence. It's easier to repeat than to begin. In that sense, playing the fool becomes a form of wisdom, a way of surviving the absurd without succumbing to despair. We pretend that there's meaning without insisting that it be real. We pretend that there is order without believing in it. It's a collective pact. Don't look too deep, or you'll wake the fear that keeps us all moving. Because if you truly looked into the abyss, you'd see that no ideology, no law, no revolution can save us from the fact that everything is temporary, fragile, and irreversibly passing away. The spectacle, then, is not a grand deception, but a form of protection, not a conspiracy, but a defense mechanism. It shields us from the unbearable immediacy of being alive. It wraps the void in ceremony, gives the chaos a name, the silence a soundtrack. It's not merely the tool of those in power, it's the instinct of everyone who cannot bear to stare into the unobstructed present. But is it worth it? Since our time here is short, wouldn't it be better to live this brief span without acting, to stop pretending to control what can't be controlled, to stop organizing chaos and instead dwell within it, without pathos, without pretense, but attentively? If order is an illusion, we can at least choose presence. Then fooling around loses its purpose. It stops being comfort. It becomes unnecessary. Because once the fear of meaninglessness fades, we no longer need to hide from it. We can simply be. Without the play, without the crowd, without the need to prove that life makes sense. It may not, but at least it's ours. The present, before it vanishes. And if you talk to those of us who live quietly, without slogans, without protest signs, without platforms, you'll see that we understand perfectly well. The spectacle isn't an illusion for fools, it's a shared reality maintained by everyone out of exhausted wisdom. We know it's hollow, but we keep playing because the alternative feels unbearable. It's not ignorance, it's resignation. Not blindness, but the weary knowledge that twitching changes nothing. This fatigue touches everyone, even in the most advanced and free societies, the ones with courts, elections, rights, and unlimited information, because the moment you collide with something larger, the state, the bank, the digital bureaucracy, you feel it again. That invisible pressure, that subtle erasure. You're not a citizen, you're a user, a case number, a client, a profile, but not a person. And now a new Leviathan has emerged. Not human, not ideological, not even governmental. A platform. It has no face, no center, no boundaries. It exists between continents, between laws, between languages. It doesn't govern, it hosts. It smiles while it restricts. It moderates while it erases. It wields a power more absolute than any regime precisely because it has nobody to strike, no name to blame. These global platforms are not tools, they're environments. Life, work, speech, love, art, death, all flow through them now. And they shape it as they wish, accountable to nothing but their own opaque algorithms. Their power isn't force, it's habit. They rule not by command, but by convenience. No one elected them, yet everyone obeys. No one bows, yet everyone complies. This is a new kind of powerlessness, one that doesn't terrify but engulfs. It doesn't punish or persuade, it simply operates. Quietly, absolutely, without need for justification, without even intent. It doesn't have to want control, it is control, built into the structure of the everyday. And that's when the performance ceases to be a choice, it becomes a trap. Because even if you stop acting, there's nowhere to go. You're not on the stage, you're inside it. The theater's expanded to include everything, and what once looked like play acting now defines reality itself. Irony loses its edge, critique loses its target. There's no outside anymore because everyone's already inside the frame. Everything has become platform. And when that happens, all that remains is attention, pure, fragile, human attention. The last form of resistance, not hope, not struggle, but the refusal to vanish completely into somebody else's code, to remain, even briefly, unrecorded, to look at the present not as a content, but as life. At least for a moment, at least in one small, unrepeatable episode. And that was chapter 4 of the Theater of Power, and it's politics, ritual, and the economy of appearance by Boris Krieger. Back in a minute. And so before I sign off, I wanted to let everybody know that I'm having some technical difficulties with my Spreaker system, and so this is why today is a little bit different. And normally it would be Moral Monday, and we'd have the usual things on offer, so to speak. But again, because of this technical difficulty, I couldn't make that happen today. So, and that's why the reason that I didn't have an episode Friday or Saturday. Sunday's episode was an episode from, I think, a couple of weeks ago that I didn't end up publishing, actually. So I got lucky there. But so hopefully tomorrow we'll have everything back to normal. But until then, I'm Ron, your host and the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you're not neutral